Welcome to ESGX Live, the community for education and information to inspire collaboration and action on all things to do with sustainability. We have a fascinating discussion coming up today, building on previous recent episodes about the challenge of plastic in our world and where this ends up. And today we're going to be talking about the blue bioeconomy. We take very much, I think, the water in our world somewhat for granted, whether it's our lakes and rivers or it's our oceans and everything that comes out of it. But of course, that is actually one of the parts of our ecosystem which has first felt the real impact of man on the planet. One of my, I was going to say favorite, but favorite is not the right word for something that's quite as tough as this, but this is what has happened in capture of fish out of the sea and aquaculture production. And you can see here from around the mid-1990s, that orange bar, which is what we've been able to extract from the oceans, has flatlined, and all of the additional protein from the sea has come from farming. And that just illustrates that we reached the capacity of the ocean to be able to feed us. With that as introduction, I'd like now to introduce Angelica and welcome her onto the digital stage here. And as she's joining us, just a quick reminder, if you're here with us in the live Zoom audience, please do say hello to each other in the chat. You can ask questions there, share ideas and your own perspectives. And we very much will enjoy that and we'll work those into the discussion. If you're with us live on YouTube, then please ask your questions there and we will keep an eye on those too and bring those into the discussion as well. And if you are on YouTube and you're enjoying what you're hearing, it may be too soon for that, please do like this. It helps to get the message out to everybody else who's with us. So over to you, Angelica, really with the question, what is the blue bioeconomy? Why are we here? Why are we having this discussion?
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you so much for the ESG team too, for the partnership in organizing this webinar, this session about blue bioeconomy. This session is part of the program that we organized this week, that is the Summit Blue in the Circular Economy. It started last Monday. And then each day we had a topic that we were really looking at, like the circular economy, and then models for sustainable tourism, and today was the day about how to finance it, and then we are really we're closing the summit with this webinar about innovation, about entrepreneurs, about new types of capital to really promote what is then a blue bioeconomy. So I'd like to start. I'm really providing this introduction, a short introduction about what is a blue bioeconomy. So if you could help me with the slide number 5 only. But then why we are getting, oh yeah, there it is. To talk a little bit about the Climate Smart Institute, we have one of the topics we have been looking at is blue and circular economy. So how can we connect these two economies that are so much interlinked into one, and what is then needed to make it scale up? And then, of course, the whole topic related to bioeconomy is part of it. When we talk about bioeconomy, so starting with what is then the official concept of a global bioeconomy. Bioeconomy is defined as the production, the use, the conservation, the regeneration of biological resources, including related knowledge, science, technology, and innovation to provide sustainable solutions within and across all economic sectors and enable transformation to a sustainable economy. Okay, this is super large. But basically what it has to do with is in this graph, that is, okay, so what is it that nature can provide us and that we can make better use of it? And then starting with, as it is said there, using better what we already use. And then this whole thing about bioeconomy started in the green economy, very much related to, for example, agriculture and forestry. Some examples here of what bioeconomy is in that sense is the agricultural biomass. So how much can the agricultural biomass be used as new sources of energy? And some years ago, when I was working for the University of St. Gallen, we developed this study that said that the entire, the biomass that is generated in Brazil because of this agricultural production would be enough to feed, or not to feed, but really to provide the energy to the entire city of Rio de Janeiro for the entire year. So there's a lot of potential there. Materials for construction and packaging. And then recently started a discussion about how can we also look at the blue bioeconomy. And then it's, as it says here, is using well what we don't use yet. And then there are several examples of what bio products mean in the blue economy, like seaweed, like the service provided by the coral reefs, like what can be used related, or what can be optimized related to the fish industry. Like fish skin in this example for eco-friendly fashion, and the examples that we're going to have today that are going to be shared by the two entrepreneurs that are sitting here with us. But in a nutshell, this is what we then having been looking at in terms of what is a blue bioeconomy. And then I think it's going to come again along with this discussion, but also what are the concerns related to it, right? Because just to finish with one example about this concern, there has been a whole, there has been a lot of excitement to realize that if cattle eats certain types of seagrass, that they're going to emit less methane, or they're going to, their impact is going to be lower. But hey, come on, okay? Are we gonna replicate the mistake of large plantations that we have on Earth in the green economy to a blue economy? So does that mean that we're gonna then start all these areas, large areas for seagrass to feed cattle? So I think that that's also part of the discussion. How much can we take of what we learned from the green economy to the blue economy? So thank you. That's as a short start.
That's a fantastic introduction. And, you know, one thing for me that I know I'm going to be really interested to dig into as we go through, which is how does all of this fit together, the sustainability thinking? How do you go from science to having a business to having, you know, commercial sustainability and impact, and bring all of those things together? So with that as the introduction, and a little bit of ocean behind me to liven it up, let's get Alexandre to join us on the stage now and tell us a little bit about what he's been doing, and indeed why, and what you've been trying to achieve, and let's take it from there.
Okay, thank you for the invitation, Angelica and Nigel. I would like to introduce you a little bit our company. This is called Regenera Moléculas from the Sea, Regenera Moléculas do Mar in Portuguese. Regenera is a company in Brazil that brings the marine biotechnological solutions for the companies. With this idea of the biotechnology, we want to bring to our customers new processes that might be, for example, more friendly process to the environment. Also, it's important to keep in mind that our model of business, so we sample once, and then we have a bank of microorganisms inside. Actually, we have a bank of microorganisms from the marine environment, the Brazilian marine environment. And then the customer came to us, and then, in fact, our product is the knowledge of the marine environmental biotechnology. We want to provide this knowledge together with our customer to have new products, innovative products, in distinct areas. For example, in cosmetic, in pharma, in agriculture, and also, of course, in some of these environmental issues that we are facing nowadays. And with this idea, we want to shed in light this marine environment in order to show the people that once you have one product that can bring a new antibiotic, let's say, from the marine environment, we have to take care more of our oceans. And then this is the idea behind Regenera. We want to shed in light this marine environment in order to show the people that we have to take care of our oceans, not only in the vacation that we are there, but all the time. Since we can imagine each organism in the ocean matters. We work on microorganisms, and then if you imagine each organism in the ocean, they have thousands of microorganisms associated to them. If we somehow lost this richness of the biodiversity, we lost a lot of chance to find a new drug, a new solution.
I was going to ask what started this journey, because I know from one of the companies that I know well from another part of the world, also the Southern Hemisphere, Australia, has been commercializing products which are chemicals found in the rainforest. And they have a cancer drug now, which is in the vet industry. It's a company called QBiotics, and that is now it's approved in the US and Europe, and it's in trials for humans, and has been extraordinarily effective in treating certain kinds of cancer. So I'm really interested in what got you started in this, and then what's the kind of the pathway to commercial products? Are there products which are now being sold? Are they close? What's that kind of pathway?
We are in the point we have at the moment 2 products that are close to be launched. One is expected to be launched in this year. It's a product which will be part of one product in agriculture, and this product will help the plant to survive some plagues, and it's not replacing the one, but we are additional. It's an additive that will help to give more health to the plants. And this is it to be launched. So we are a little bit late on the pandemic, but nowadays we expect to launch this year yet. And another product we are looking for the cosmetic product as well. And this product is also under development. It's not so far as the agriculture one, but also we are in this pathway of developing, always together with a partner at the moment.
And I think that's an interesting question too. What has been the kind of commercial model? Where has the funding come from to support your work? Where has the focus come from to support your work or to drive the work?
A very good question. Actually, all projects we sell, so let's say like our project we sell to the customer is paid by the customer from the beginning. So we sell the project, the knowledge from the marine environment. This is the idea, and then together with the customer, we want to bring this product in the market. So at the first, so the customer came to us. So we need a new material for improve the health plant. And then we search in literature what we can do with the microorganisms from the marine environment, and then we show the projects and the possibilities we have in our bank of microorganisms, and then the customer pay us a little bit from the project at the beginning, and then we make a proof of concept. We say, so let's try this, and look, we have here 10 new microorganisms capable to do what you want. And then in this step, we sign another contract, and then already predicting the development of the product up to the end together with this customer. This is like
and how have you found those customers? Because I know for that I work with a variety of B2B startups in a variety of different fields.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest challenges is finding those early customers that are prepared to trust you. What's been the trigger for that?
Because this is also interesting, because the companies which are able to pay such a project is not usually not little companies. They are big companies, and they are used to this innovative atmosphere, let's say like this. And then we got these customers by contacting in these meetings in innovation, and trying to reach people in these companies directly. But we took us some time to get involved in this atmosphere, but we are very active in this scenario of innovation in Brazil in order to get the attention of the companies, let's say like this.
And are those companies mostly in Latin America, or are they from around the world? Who are you looking for? And if anybody's listening in, who do you want to pick up the phone and say, Alexandre, please, can you help us?
Yes. We have our customers, they are from Brazil, but some of them, they are worldwide. So, I mean, they have one position here in Brazil, but one of them, for example, is based in France. And then they have a position here in Brazil. It's a big one. And another, usually it's Brazilian, and some of them are worldwide action. So they act worldwide or sell worldwide. But we are open to all companies, of course. Once you have a problem that the marine environment might solve, which is really probably because we didn't have a negative up to now. So each problem which came to us, we found at least one solution in the marine environment.
No, that's fascinating, and I think I'm going to ask Valentina to join us on the stage now. But I think this is a really important lesson for everybody, both in innovation and in the corporate sector, looking for problems, which is look broadly for what you can find, because there is extraordinary work going on around the world, and it is it's easy to miss it. So Valentina, welcome to the discussion. And Alexandre, don't go away. We'll bring you back in. I'd love to start off with, what are you focusing on? I know there's a couple of different things you're involved with. Where is your focus and why? Give us a bit of an introduction to that.
Okay, so thank you for the invitation to this discussion. Well, my background is mainly, I'm a marine biologist, and my background has been working in promoting R&D within the aquaculture industry in Chile. Today I am working in a company called Aker BioMarine, who is it's a nice mix of a company who is fishing for krill in the Antarctic Ocean. It's also innovative. It's sustainable in the sense that the fisheries of krill is carried out in an environment that asks, and it has to be done in a sustainable way. If we think about the environment, the natural environment where we're fishing, Aker BioMarine has since day one been very focused on trying to engage with the different stakeholders of the Antarctic environment. With NGOs, also with certification bodies, with research organizations, and very focused on trying to carry this out in the best way. Also innovative, because we try to get the best out of this really incredible creature, which is very low in the trophic chain. We believe that low trophic fisheries is the future. In the sense that we have been developing different products for human consumption, for aquaculture, for pets, and are always trying to develop and use the krill in the best way. So we don't have any part of the animal that is not used for something, since we believe in the nutritional importance of this organism.
And there's a very good question asked here, and this may be jumping ahead a little bit. And well, actually, two questions in here. One is around how these types of initiatives can help with marine ecosystem conservation. And a linked question is, what is being done to explore how, cells from these types of species can be used, not by farming them in the wild or in the oceans, but through perhaps a cell-based approach to generating the same proteins. I'm not sure if you've looked at that kind of thing, but you can understand that, one reaction is,
yes,
have we just found a new thing to fish?
Yes. I haven't gone into the in vivo generation the in vitro generation of these kind of proteins. Krill has a lot of nutrients. I mean, it's a creature that has not only protein but also omega-3 phospholipids, vitamins, antioxidants. It has a lot of nutritional components that are very healthy for humans and for other animals. I think that that way of generating food for the growing population is, of course, an important thing to look into. It's not my specialty, so I will not go further into that. And regarding the conservation of the ecosystem, krill is the biggest biomass in the planet. I think it's the biggest biomass of organisms. Today, the allowed quota for fishing krill is less than 1% of the calculated biomass. It is a very regulated and sustainable fisheries. Of course, I think that protecting the marine environment has to do with also being able to use it in the correct way, not only not touching it, but also being able to manage it correctly. And I think this is a very well managed fisheries. We also have contact with
I think that's incredibly important, because you can, you imagine the natural reaction that people will have who don't understand some of the numbers in the ecosystem, and many of us don't. I had not really appreciated until recently the figures for mammals, where 70% of the weight of mammals on the planet is things we're growing to eat, and almost all the rest is people, and only 6% is not people or things they're about to eat. So what's happened on the land with mammals is truly terrifying. The bird population is not wildly different. Most of the birds are chickens, and again, things we're about to eat. And so really helpful to be able to quantify, just how big the population is in the ocean and how much of it we're talking about using, which presumably, even if this expanded significantly, we still wouldn't be, I don't know, of all, if we're currently taking 1%, what is the most we could realistically take whilst being highly confident we're not messing with the entire ecosystem?
Yes. I think that it's a very important issue. We're talking about Antarctic, we're talking about krill, we're talking about whales, we're talking about penguins. It is an area that is very well managed. Aker also is involved financially and supporting scientific-based fisheries, of course. If we're going to have a sustainable fisheries, we need to have sustainable krill in the environment. So, it has to be investments are also sustainability is also economic. If we want to fish the sea, we need to take care of it. and be able to know that that it will keep we will keep on having all the environment. I mean, all the species that are in this marine environment there.
Absolutely. And what was I guess one question I have is, what are the things that you worry about most? What are the kind of risks that are involved in expanding this activity, and how are they being managed?
I mean, I think the expansion is mainly based on product development. I don't think there will be an increase of the quota that is given for krill fisheries. It will be maintained. And I don't think the focus is there. The focus is on developing new and better products from what we're harvesting today. I think this year 2 new products were launched for human consumption. So, I mean, sustainability also requires innovation. So we have to be very good at using in the best way what we are harvesting today.
And my last question, and then I'm going to get Anita to join us and keep the conversation rolling forward before we get then into a group discussion. And that is to, just simply, where is this fishing taking place? Where are the fishing grounds? Is that evolving? Is there any of that affected by other factors like climate change, which are touching many areas of our lives?
Well, in the Antarctic, there's certain areas where the fisheries is permitted. So it's called Area 48 today. This is the main area where the harvest boats can be located. Last year there was an auto-imposed restrictions to not fish in areas where penguins have their fishing grounds. So there are some. There's a lot of organization between the fisheries groups that are fishing for krill, and they're also in line with the research institutions like AWR, the Antarctic Research Group, which they are sensing and counting and looking at the other wildlife in order to restrict the areas. But the main area is Area 48.
Fantastic. That's very helpful. So, and I guess just following on from that, so which countries are really involved in this fishing? Because again, this is another area that can be politically very sensitive. Where are the boats coming from? Who's really driving that? Is it, is it a global industry? Is it really driven by a few countries?
No, it's quite restricted. I don't have the exact countries who are in the group, but it's. I should have that information. I don't have it with me now, but it's very restricted. I mean, not every country has a quota. The quotas are given per country, so that is the restriction, and not every country has the possibility to fish there.
Yeah, and is this correct? Is this Area 51? Is this roughly look right?
It's 48 where the fisheries is.
Sorry, 48. Is this the right area that we've got on the graphic here?
Let me check my.
It's basically the area between the bottom of South America and South Africa and the Antarctic.
It's a bit up. If I could share, I could show you.
If we'll try to find a graphic and share. Just interesting for people to see.
I can send it to you and you can present it.
Fantastic. We might come back to that. It's nice for it to be real, because I know we're all sitting here, whether we're in Brazil or in New York or wherever else in the world we are. It's nice to see where it is. So let me ask Anita to join us now, and we'll move forward to what you're doing and a little bit more the perhaps investment perspective. So, tell us what you're involved with, Anita.
Hi, Nigel. Hi, everybody. Good to be here with you. Thank you for the invitation. And as opposed to my colleagues who spoke before, I'm not a researcher. I'm not a scientist. I'm a boring banker. So I look for, my goal is to look for interesting, innovative green or blue economy investments for the bank. Let me just pause here, Nigel, and explain to people like in 30 seconds what the IDB is, because I don't know if everybody knows about it. So IDB,
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So the Inter-American Development Bank Group is composed by three, let's say, companies, like a holding, right? The main one, which is the Inter-American Development Bank, devotes itself to finance governments in Latin America and the Caribbean, governments that need financing for infrastructure, for health projects, for schools, for education, etc. So this is the IDB. IDB Invest is the company of the group that devotes itself to finance corporations. So medium to large size companies that need financing to expand their operations in the region, respecting all the ESG principles that we ought to respect. And last but not least, we have the IDB Lab that was formerly known as the Multilateral Investment Fund, or FOMIN, for the ones who live in Latin America, which is an off-balance sheet trust fund financed by 30-something countries. And it's important for me to say this, Nigel, because the mere fact that we are off-balance sheet allows me to finance high-risk projects, because the risk that we finance doesn't affect the balance sheet of the bank that ought to be a AAA type of balance sheet, because we lend on to governments, right? So,
and does that mean you can also make different types of investments? So you've got a lot of flexibility as to how the money goes in and indeed where it goes in.
Exactly. So not only I can go deeper in terms of risk, but I can also be more creative in terms of financial products we can offer. And the whole idea of IDB Lab is basically to think about projects and financial instruments that later on could be scaled by the IDB or the IDB Invest for both public and private sectors. So that's the whole idea. So my role specifically is to look at, as I said, green and blue economy investments, right? So we are I would say we are the largest multilateral investment group in this scene in the region. We not only deploy IDB resources, but we also deploy resources from the GEF, the Global Environmental Facility, the Global Climate Fund, the GCF, but also all the climate investment funds of the World Bank. So they channel their resources to Latin America through IDB Lab, where I work. And we do it in two different ways. We can do grants, or we can do reimbursable products, which is mainly equity, semi-equity, and loans to these companies, such as the company that Alexandre talked about, such as Valentina's. So we do that, and depending on the stage of the company. So if the company is very
I was going to ask
stage,
what stage of company is it? Seed? Is it Series A? And what type of business? You know, if there may be people in the audience who have startups or startup ideas, at what point should they be reaching out to you, Anita, and saying, "Okay, we're ready for some IDB financing now"?
Awesome, great question. So, and it's very important. We go from pre-seed to Series A. So if the audience doesn't know, is when you're starting the business, right after you have your pilot done, until you get already like right after your break-even point, so to speak, like the first 2 or 3 years of after break-even, we finance those companies that are within this range. Series B and above.
Is there a typical investment size?
The investment
or the
size
range
varies,
of equity check?
Yeah, usually varies between 750K USD to 1.5, $2 million. Usually it stays within the range. Of course, it depends on the country, depends on the size of the company, etc.
And you're usually leading those rounds. Would you normally be the lead investor, or you're following someone else?
We always follow. Why? Because we are a public development bank. So the theory is the following: if the private sector is willing to lead that investment, why should we lead? We should only support that, give a little push, but we should never be leading the investment. The whole idea is to come along with the private sector, but never crowd out the private sector. Our goal is to support the whole private sector financing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And
so
you've got a couple of examples to talk about?
Yes. So I was gonna say about it. So we have I brought like 2 interesting example plus the one that you see behind me that I forgot to mention. But as Angelica talked about seaweed, I couldn't help myself but post the picture here. So the first one, which was the first one, EcoFlora, right, Nigel, that we talked about. So EcoFlora is a green bioeconomy investment, but I think it's an example of where I'd like all the blue economy investments to be a few years down the road. So
fantastic. Well, let me.
Yeah.
We've got a little video here. Let me play the beginning of the video with a bit of, and then let you keep going. So tell us about EcoFlora. I think this is a fascinating business, and it's solving a really important problem.
Yeah. So first of all, it's led by a wonderful woman, Sandra, in Colombia, and what she does, she uses the waste of jagua, which in Portuguese is genipapo. It's a fruit that is very peculiar, and it can be found in the Amazon region. And from the jagua fruit, they get this blue coloration, like this blue color. They extract this blue color, and they sell it out, sell this blue coloration to the textiles industry and food industry for candies and stuff like that. In fashion, apparently this blue that you see there is very unique. So what I want to say is that they use, like, as Angelica says, like, we use things that we never used before, like, waste of part of a fruit, and we turn that into this coloration, this color that is very unique and can be used by different types of industry. And it's all like within the best environmental standards you can think of. The producers of these guava fruits are all families, low-income families that now are not as low income anymore. They are growing their income as well. Many of them Afro descendants. So you see the beauty of the project. This project, we already had, if I'm not wrong, 2 exits with 2 different funds. So in other words, IDB Lab invested in a venture capital fund that in turn invested in EcoFlora. And when I say exit, it means we managed to get paid back for our investments. And these investments really give us a good return. On average, I'm talking about 12% IRR, like internal rate of return. The tier,
which is good from your point of view. No less than what many VCs would target, but of course there's a whole set of broader impact happening here beyond the company itself.
Well,
and I think
but nowadays with the low interest rates everywhere, I think it's very good. Usually VCs in the region do get it's almost the average that VCs in the region get. The VCs in the region get a little bit above that. I think it's 15% on average, because they are 10-year investments, right? So,
and look, it's evolving, and I mean, in practice, there's a big difference between the average and the real winners and the ones that people lose on.
Yeah.
But I think fascinating this, and this video, which is we'll post a link to the video with the sound on the website page afterwards, tells a wonderful story about how the local community is being helped, and it is also being used to reforest to an extent as well. So there's quite an interesting and complete set of impacts. What about the other business? I love this one particularly, not least because it's in Colombia. I was born in Colombia, so I have a love for the country, even though I've not visited since I was very small. But tell us about the other one. So
the other one is also very dear to me. It's called EcoSea Farming, and it's very interesting because it's super innovative. but also has a huge environmental impact. So EcoSea Farming is based in Chile, and it's a spin-off of a research a long. I mean, it took years for them to research this, but it was financed by the Chilean government. So they basically use the waste of the copper from the mining industry in Chile and transform this into a huge fish net that is used for offshore farming fisheries all over the world. So the beauty of this fish net is that it lasts up to 12 years. And imagine, like, there is no plastic involved whatsoever. So imagine if we could turn all the nylon used by fisheries into fish nets such as this one. So one of the beautiful things has to do with the usage of the waste of copper, which is a biomaterial. The second one,
there was a really good question in the chat on YouTube a little bit earlier on around, from Ariane Fonseca, how could we introduce the lost fishing gear in the blue economy or the circular economy? This isn't lost fishing gear, but it's a massive source of waste which has been reused to create a really durable solution. And what they're doing, the solution itself seems very smart.
Yeah, exactly. It's super smart. It lasts forever, as I said. It protects and has sensors. The fishnet has different sensors, so it has an IoT component. So basically, the folks from EcoSea, they can have direct information, like on-time information about the biomass that lives inside the fish net. Another feature that they have in the case of a tsunami, which happens at oftentimes, depending on where the fish net is, the fish net they predict the tsunami. When they see that the sea is moving in a certain way, the fish net closes itself and falls down to the bottom of the ocean. The tsunami passes, and then it comes back to its original position, therefore protecting the biomass that was inside of it, right? So it has many innovative, interesting features. They are based out in Chile. We did.
I was going to ask, where are the fish nets anchored?
So they are, so pretty much they are anchored. They are not anchored like down below. They're pretty much anchored to one another. I think they only have one, if I'm not lying, they only have one string, like in one of the drawings I can send you later, but they are in, sorry, Nigel. You're on mute.
How close to the coast are they?
Oh no, they're not close to the coast at all. They are offshore. They are offshore. Yeah, they're offshore. And of course, for you to do it, you need special license. So they are not doing it in every country. They are only doing it in countries where there is a strong regulation, and they allow you to do that under certain conditions, right? So,
and what scale is this business at now? And is this technology which can readily be exported to other parts of the world?
That's a very good question. Right now, if I'm not wrong, they have a few, I think two dozens of fish nets in the South American coast, not in that area where I think you showed there a little bit up, maybe around the same area where Valentina was talking about. So they have, most of their clients are Chilean fisheries. But they are also exporting to Japan, to Australia, and to, if I'm not wrong, China as well. And China, there is a huge demand for other types of protein, and they are looking into sustainable fishing very seriously. So,
well, if they need any help in Australia, we have very particular connectivity in that part of the world. The Pottinger business was born in Australia, somewhat by accident, much as I was born in Colombia. But if we can help them in any way in Australia, please let me know.
Great. Actually,
delighted
that's
to do
a very good idea. I will connect you to them. They're certainly, be appreciated. And
Can I ask a
yeah.
question? We have some
Yes.
questions coming in on the YouTube chat. So we have attendees on Zoom and attendees on YouTube at live.esgx.org. So Cynthia asks, does the IDB lab finance any small scale fishery projects in Latin America?
It does. It does. We, as I said, we have done. This thingy here that I have behind me, we do, but it's like you have to have an innovation component. This is very important. Our mantra is innovation for inclusion. So like these guys here, like it's a company that collects seaweed for sargassum that is now a big problem in many Caribbean countries, and they transform it into biofertilizers. So, that is quite innovative. So it's a small company. Again, it's in St. Lucia, so you can imagine it's teeny, but we found it so innovative and can be so helpful for so many Caribbean countries that we finance them. Yes.
Great.
Fantastic. Well, I think we should get our other guests back on the stage now. Now, Paul, do please stay with us. I suspect you're going to have some more interesting questions as usual, but and Angelica too, if you're there, please come back. And my first question maybe to Paul is just going to be, as you sit here and you're based in San Francisco, you've been involved in everything to do with investment and sustainability for a fairly long time now. What is the investor interest in all of this? There's obviously been a huge amount that's happened over the last couple of years. What's that kind of big picture, big investor perspective?
Yeah, I'll give a couple of insights into that, Nigel, and so glad to have all of us together here. We continue to get interest in themes like biodiversity, which is very difficult to measure the impact of. There's estimates of species loss or of biomass. Earlier, Valentina was talking about the biomass of krill. Just the krill in the Atlantic, and by the way, krill is tiny shrimp like entities. Just the biomass of Antarctic krill equals the biomass of all humans. So there's 7.5 billion humans. That's how much biomass, if we all got split up in the tiny krill, is in the Antarctic. And that doesn't count all krill in the ocean, which picoplankton, for example, is twice the mass of all cattle on Earth. So there's interest in everything from individual investors who care about the oceans. Some of you may have seen the previous ESGX episode, both with Philippe Cousteau and people like Lena Konstantinovich, and so funding innovations. I like what Anita said of the innovation for inclusion. That's I've done a lot of work in Asia, and there's a lot of shrimp farming in Asia. Usually the shrimp farming in Asia is you dig a hole, you fill it with a liner, you fill it with water, and then hopefully there's some type of nitrogen filtering and other filtering. And those last for a year or two, and then that's it. And so some of the innovations in Asia have been to innovative filtration systems, so that 2-year shrimp farm hole lasts 5 years. There's foundations like the Gordon Moore Foundation, whose primary focus is on oceans and water quality. So this is really exciting today to get like the tangible products and platforms. And Alexandre talked about sort of the platform for biology. And Valentina, I know, has been working in oceans around Latin America, including salmon populations for more than a decade. So there's high interest. And of course, the SDGs, I'll just wrap it up by saying there's a whole sustainable development goal of life underwater. And the intersection of life underwater SDG with the other SDGs is where more innovation can happen as well. So it's great to hear that all waste, not only plastic waste, but metal waste, and can find new purpose or new utility. But I'd say we're at the beginning of the focus in SDG investing, where we'll see specific SDG funding and and then crossovers. So one question when we get to it would be for each of the panelists, like, how are you measuring that impact? Is there a certain impact number or impact metric or impact categories? Are there frameworks like the SDGs? So I'd love to hear from that if we want to take the conversation in that direction.
And if you allow me, I would like to add one more question here, because there are startups watching us, watching this webinar. What is then, from an investor's perspective, what is it that they expect? What is the minimum they expect from this sort of businesses to say, hey, it is of interest? And even looking at it from the risk perspective, because all sorts of new technologies, they are high risk, right? So, okay, I can take the risk. I can take the risk because, so what is this thing that is really, let's say that diminishes this risk perspective and really provides the internal incentive for investors to invest in such startups?
Yeah, I mean, I'll happily make a comment on that. And and this is perhaps from a North American perspective. If we just focus on mainstream type VC investors, then they're really looking for traction. So they're looking for your demonstrable ability to sell to customers, which means you've actually started to sell and you've got some revenues. And indeed, for most investors, those customers need to be in North America, because there's a kind of sense that if you're going to win in a large market here, you've got to prove you can do that. Now, of course, Latin America is a pretty large market too, and this is a somewhat myopic point of view, and it is changing, and there's progressively more funds that will look globally, but it's that kind of early traction that is really important. And there's way more money available for companies that are solidly at Series A stage, and in the US that will be seen as you've got revenues and you've got customers and you've got some traction and you're growing. You may be losing money, and indeed many companies will lose money hand over fist until they're significantly larger. That's a kind of simple take on it. And this is why I think it's so important that there are these initiatives like IDB, where there is more money going in at that kind of seed stage where it's harder to raise capital. The other place, of course, is there are corporates out there that are looking to get involved in businesses at a fairly early stage where they've got particular problems to solve. And, we've seen this, for example, I've done a fair bit of work over the last year in precision fermentation or cell-based proteins and around the dairy industry. And there's a series of strategic investors who are putting money into startups at a really early stage, very much seed stage, because they can see these changes coming and they're just trying to be at the table so that when it gets to the next round and there starts to be products, that they're maybe not first in the queue, but they're at least at the first table for discussion of access to products. And I'd love to come back to Paul's question for each of you, maybe starting with Alexandre, about, how do you measure impact? What is it you're looking at or your customers are looking at for measuring whether you're having the impact you really want to have?
This is a very good question. So we discussed this a lot in Regenera, because the impact up to now, the idea is that we have to show how the oceans can bring solutions to us, to society, let's say like this, that the society is not only worried about the oceans when they go vacation. They have to be worried because they have to keep in mind that it might be a solution in there that we don't see yet. It is new, it's innovative, and might be the solution for the cancer, might be the solution for to diminish the poverty somehow in agriculture in there. Once we lost this diversity or this richness, we are losing solutions for the future. And the impact we imagine from Regenera side is that we have to bring this idea to the society. From the customers, this is more difficult. Today, during the summit, they talked a little bit on this, Angelica. You remember that It's difficult to measure, but it is very important to know how the customers are imagining these solutions for the future. But our customers, usually they are really involved in this kind of environmental issues, at least, or the care of the animals as well. And some of them, they have this compliance, let's say like this. But from Regenera side, our purpose, at least at the moment, is to imagine the impact, to show to the society, and also to time turn this industrial process more environmental friendly. This is what up to now we discuss inside.
I'll just jump in for a quick add-on too, because one of the other trends is there's a new framework called SFDR, Sustainable Finance Disclosure Requirement. And it's also related to the EU taxonomy, European Union taxonomy. And there are very specific requests for biodiversity metrics linked to companies. So it's hard enough for just scientists to estimate biomass or biomass reduction or species loss, which we're doing and which we're doing a terrible job at preserving. But now, just as the SDGs have become a country measure to a company measure to a portfolio measure, the same, let's say in biodiversity. So to the extent any venture or investor can clarify that, you'll have an advantage for allocations coming from investors following the EU taxonomy or the SFDR.
Can I jump in? I think people tend to confuse SDG with ESG. And they're two very different things. SDGs are the Sustainable Development Goals that the planet decided to do everything they can to follow those principles. Thank you, Nigel. Those ones. So if you are a responsible human being or a company or a bank, you should keep those Sustainable Development Goals in mind. Okay, that's what it is about. ESG is different. Environmental, social, and governance principles, practices, and culture is completely different. They do impact, they can tell you if whether or not you, your company, or your bank have an impact in the SDGs. But it's not because you think your company has an impact in SDGs that you do have. So the ESG principles are a way for you to prove that you're actually having some contribution to the SDGs. So I say this because it gets very confusing. In Latin America, everybody now is saying, I'm an ESG fund. Angelica is laughing here. I am an ESG fund. I have the ESG principles, blah, blah, blah. I have been working in development banks for over 20 years. I have applied ESG safeguards for over 20 years in my operations. So it's not new, folks. It's quite old, actually. And it's just like basic principles. So if you look at the World Bank, where I worked before, and now at the IDB, at the United Nations, everybody has an environmental, social, and governance framework that we have to comply with. So the indicators, to respond to the question, so my responsibility, because the monies that I invest in startups are not, the monies are not mine, the monies come from taxpayers from 48 different countries. I do have to, I have like the loan or the investment proposal, and attached to it, I have to put like what we call is a results matrix. The results matrix tells the governments, who are the shareholders of my bank, how much CO2 we are not going to emit thanks to that operation. How tons of plastic we are avoiding to throw in the ocean thanks to the EcoSea investment. How many low-income people that live in the coast are being benefited because the fishery is not right there and it's not causing pollution right there. So how many women work in these companies? So all of that in a serious bank, in a serious company, you have this table attached to your investment proposal. If you don't have that in your investment proposal, I'm sorry, it's just BS. It's just like you want to look good in the picture, but you're not doing your job really. So
It's,
I
and
think,
look, I think I was
I
going to
There's a
jump
lot
in
more
because
BSG than there is ESG.
yeah. So I think,
the-
yeah, BSG, it's BSG, exactly. Thank you.
And the interesting thing here, just one comment on this, which is, you know, the Sustainable Development Goals are a very good frame for what are the really big picture things that matter to the world as a whole, and to reaching a place where we can live collectively on the earth without destroying the environment and providing opportunity to everybody. That being said, if you are in the very much the private sector and companies, most of the items on this list do not come up in your board meetings. It's just not a natural fit with where businesses focus. And one of the things that's happened over the last 5 years, and this is data just from Google Trends as to what people talk about, and the SDGs is the little blue line at the bottom, and the red line is ESG, and you see similar trends in some other parts, certainly of the English-speaking world. There's been dramatically more interest in ESG, and your definition of ESG is absolutely right. What has happened is it has become a kind of simple reference term for anything and everything to do with sustainability. It's become a shorthand for many different things, which of course makes this very confusing. To Paul's point, there's a lot of BSG here, and you know, a lot of it is just greenwashing. Of course, where it's all going is companies need and investors need to be able to figure out, as they're investing, are they really driving real impact from their investments? And what does that mean? And, you know, once upon a time, there was just return on capital. And then there was the idea of risk-adjusted return on capital. At some point, we're going to get to a definition of impact-adjusted return on capital or return on investment. We don't have the tools to do that because we can't really quantify in the way we can for risk. How does all this stuff fit together? But that is where this is going, because there is this massive weight of money flowing into ESG related funds. You know, last year in the US, $51 billion. The figures in Europe are something like 4 times that amount. So it's a massive, massive driver.
So Valentina,
now, I know that,
you've worked
go on,
with
Paul.
salmon populations off of Chile for several years. And that's been a challenge to biodiversity and stability. What are you seeing in terms of metrics that work for the blue economy?
Yeah, I guess I can comment on that. I think that, I mean, I think I agree with the comments from Anita and from Nigel. But I think that, I mean, all of these new requirements from the finance and from the market are pushing companies in the right direction. I mean, I think it's going to be at one point just, you know, the license or the basic compliance that companies will have to have. It will be a standard. And talking about standards, I think that, I was involved some years ago, I think maybe 7 years ago, with the setup of the ASC standard in Chile for the salmon industry. It was a very chaotic time, in the sense that, of course, the salmon farmers, they were wondering, okay, I'm going to get the certification, but will I get paid more for my fish? And the answer was, you know, all the market studies, they revealed that no, people won't pay more for a certified fish. And 7 years later, I mean, if you don't have the certification, you just can't get into the market. So I think that's a good example of what's going to happen. I see that the development of the salmon industry in Chile, I mean, it has been a push and pull. It has been pushed by the market. The market is asking for better production. It's asking for sustainable production. I mean, things can't be done under the table anymore. We're looked at and seen from everywhere, from Twitter, from Facebook, from, I mean, it's impossible not to do things correctly. So, I mean, I think the government has also pushed for things to be done in a better way. And of course, I think today the target is to have 70% certification, I think, of the salmon farms in the country. And I hope that that will be in line with what the rest of the world will ask for. I mean, I see there's change. Of course, we are in shared ground. The ocean is everyone's. So we are looked at and we are judged in a different way than the vineyards are judged. So it has to be done very responsibly. And but I believe in aquaculture. I mean, I'm an aquaculture fan. I think that the sea has great opportunities. We have to treat it correctly, but I believe that that we can live in harmony with the harvesting also and with cultivating our oceans. I think it has a lot to give.
Great.
Fantastic. There was one question earlier on that I think we really shouldn't go past, which was from Min in Southern California, the founder of Conscious Co., talking about the issue that a lot of the pressure on marine ecosystems and freshwater ecosystems as well is the impact of over-fertilization, all of the runoff from the land. I'm interested if anybody on this panel has got some perspectives on what is happening or activity underway to address that from the work you're involved with.
I can just tell from the impact perspective, like Brazil, what saves the GDP is the agricultural sector. Most of it not organic. So you can imagine the amount of pesticides that end up in the sea and all the impact that it is causing in the coastline. But that discussion is still not there yet. So it's not of interest. And then when you talk about indicators too, I think that the same way, or bring a bit from this green economy, we should also look at all that has to do with carbon. So of course, blue carbon is a very tough topic, but it has to be connected to a blue bioeconomy, right? Because if we're doing it properly in the mangroves, in the coastlines, it has a benefit for the mangroves. So why not start adding the blue carbon credits to the entire equation too? And then the second one that I think that it's really hard to measure. It has to do with the ocean warming and acidification, right? Because that's also a threat, right, for the entire blue bioeconomy. So how do we then start connecting and looking at it from a systemic perspective about what our behavior on land has at the end of the day in the ocean and the back to the land? So I think that if we think about impact measurement, I think that those should be indicators that should somehow at least be there to start looking at it. Not that we can measure it yet, but in a way that it's just as it was, or it still is in some places, all that relates to gender inclusion indicator, right? People say, yeah, I do, but then it's just there to call attention to say, hey, if you don't, then you cannot access this type of capital, right? And I think that it's the same. So if we look at coral restoration and all the environmental services that coral reefs can provide, and the mangroves, and then in a blue bioeconomy, how do we start looking at those as part of the indicators too? So that's a point I would have. And then as my partner says, the ocean does not catch fire, right? Because if you look at the Amazon and all the fire and the destruction, it's clear, right? You go there. I was in the south of the Amazon some years ago. You cannot even breathe, right? Because it's so much smoke in the air coming from everywhere, right? But then if you go to the ocean, it all looks beautiful, right? It's blue, it's beautiful. Many times it's calm, but then what's really going on there? So I think that in this sense, transparency is key. And then again, all that connects to blockchain. How can we really? And then if you talk about aquaculture too, Valentina, I think a lot has to do with how can I make sure that, okay, certified fish, people are not willing to pay more, but if you have a true traceability of it, would you pay more, right? So I think that there are these points that are there are quick wins that could be really added to this equation when we talk about a blue bioeconomy.
And can I just say something about traceability? One of our good investments in aquaculture had to do with traceability, a startup that was doing tuna traceability. And that's a very good point, Angelica.
Yeah, and coming back to this point about is there money in it, you know, when I lived in the UK in the 1980s when organic farming became a thing promoted by Prince Charles and everybody thought he was a crazy tree hugger. And of course, an enormous amount of what is sold in the UK now is organic because it's what people want. And I can certainly testify here in New York, if you want the organic product, it probably costs 50% more, but you're also only getting about half as much. So some of the price differentials are absolutely massive. Now, how much of that goes to the farmer versus the retailer is another question, but there are solutions to that. Now, I'm conscious we're very rapidly heading towards the end of time here. So I will throw to Paul in a second just to wrap up and to thank you all. What I was going to just put in, I just grabbed these slides from a previous discussion we had a few weeks ago around impact investing. This is the net inflows to sustainable investment funds in the first part of this year. And you can see nearly 150 billion US dollars in Europe. This is net inflow. So this is the number that really matters. And you can see how this has evolved over time globally in global quarterly inflows. And the numbers are huge. And again, there was a question, you know, what's the fight against greenwashing? What does that look like? And the answer is, for many of these funds, they are ESG driven in a somewhat or perhaps very superficial manner. But the funds are there because people want these investments. And what will happen is I'm sure there will come greater focus on how you better measure ESG performance, and there will be a drive towards authenticity and performance. But I don't think investor interest and consumer interest in these types of funds is going to go away. So I might throw that to Paul for his perspective, because of course HIP Investor has been at the heart of measuring is the business sustainable and does this translate into investment performance? So over to you, Paul, to wrap up.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank everybody. Angelica, thanks very much for organizing all of us through the Blueing Economy Summit. And so look forward to continuing to see that evolve forward. I want to thank our panelists, Alexandre, Valentina, and Anita, for this deep dive. I think everything went swimmingly for us to explore the oceans and the potential. And unfortunately, Angelica, this week the ocean is on fire. There's a Caspian Sea fire explosion. And so it is possible, just like it was in Lake Erie in the US when it was overrun with chemicals, to catch on fire. So we need to take care of our earth, our resources, our air, water, land, both underwater and above land. So please stay engaged, solving problems and solutions, whether it's the Sustainable Development Goals or other impacts. And this is part of an ongoing focus on oceans, seas, and solving problems. So Thanks everybody for listening. You can find this recording on live.esgx.org or on the website. And we invite you to continue engaging to solve problems and to join future episodes. We'll be back later this month with a green jobs report for ESGX, but we'll be on a slower summer schedule and come back full force in the fall, but there'll be a couple of episodes. And so we're so delighted, Angelica, for your leadership and all of you on this call for helping to blue the circular economy. So thanks again. Make the world a better place, and you can do so through your portfolio because it can reduce risk and potentially add to returns. We'll see you next time on ESGX.
Thank you.